You know that feeling, right? It's 3 in the morning, you're standing in a dimly lit room holding a crying newborn, and it just feels so incredibly exhausting and isolating. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to gently unpack the overwhelming reality of newborn crying. We're going to decode all that noise and hopefully completely transform how you experience those difficult nights. Why is this happening? Literally every exhausted, sleep-deprived parent asks this exact question while they're desperately trying to soothe their infant. The noise, the confusion, feeling totally helpless, it can absolutely paralyze you. But finding the answer, well, that begins with a fundamental shift in our perspective. We have to change how we view what that sound actually means.
Okay, right off the bat, let's clear something up. A baby's cry isn't a broken system. It's not a malfunction or some kind of error code. It's pure communication. It is their biological method and, frankly, their very first and only tool for survival and for telling the outside world what they need.
And this right here beautifully illustrates the disconnect we feel. Think about it. As adults, we usually only cry for major stuff, right? Intense physical pain, deep fear, profound loss. But babies? They cry for everyday inconveniences. They cry because they're a little too warm, or overtired, or just need a hug. They cry because they literally lack the vocabulary to just say, "Excuse me, but my stomach is slightly upset."
So it's totally easy to see why we panic. The sheer noise triggers our internal alarms. But despite how chaotic and overwhelming that sound may seem in the heat of the moment, the fascinating truth is that almost all newborn crying boils down to just 3 basic biological causes. Realizing that this chaos actually has a structure, that's the game changer.
If we step back and take a breath, we can group all that noise into 3 core buckets: instinctual fear, unmet physical needs, and hidden discomforts. The second you can mentally drop your baby's crying into one of these 3 specific categories, the whole situation becomes understandable. And, much more importantly, it becomes way less frightening for you.
Let's dive into the first big driver, pure biological instinct. Human babies are born incredibly vulnerable. Unlike a lot of animals, human infants can't survive alone for even a few hours, and their nervous system knows this on a cellular level. Evolutionarily, they are wired to view physical separation as a literal threat to their life. That's exactly why they sound the alarm the absolute second you put them down. Which leads us to a profoundly important observation. If a baby stops crying the exact second you pick them up, they aren't manipulating you. Remember this, newborns do not manipulate, they communicate. Real physical pain or deep hunger doesn't just vanish instantly because they're being held, but fear does. Their instinctual panic just evaporates the moment they feel the familiar heartbeat of their protector.
All right, moving past instinct, we have to look at unmet physical needs. We're talking the classics here: hunger, thirst, a wet diaper, or extreme fatigue. These seem like super obvious fixes, right? But the real issue isn't that babies are irrational, it's that exhausted, anxious adults often misread the signals. We tend to panic and react immediately instead of pausing to observe what they're actually telling us.
Here is a classic trap. Parents almost always assume a crying baby must be starving. But surprisingly enough, modern babies are frequently overfed, not underfed. Feeding them every single time they cry can trigger this miserable cycle. The overfeeding causes gas pressure and painful bloating, which leads to, you guessed it, more crying. Sometimes the problem isn't hunger at all. It's the uncomfortable bloating from the last feeding. And that little misconception brings us to a crucial realization. Sometimes the solution isn't adding more things to the mix, more milk, more bouncing, more shushing, more toys. Sometimes the absolute best thing you can do is remove stimulation entirely to address hidden discomforts. When an overtired baby is crying, adding bright lights and frantic rocking just short-circuits their nervous system. They need calm, and they need us to look a little closer. Because here's the reality check. Babies cannot just ignore tiny irritations that you and I easily brush off. Think about trying to sleep with a rock in your shoe. To a newborn, a twisted sleeve, a scratchy tag, a dry nose, or a room that is just slightly too warm can feel like an absolute emergency, especially in the evening. As their brain starts slowing down for sleep, every tiny itch or pressure becomes literally impossible for them to ignore.
Okay, so how do we handle this? This brings us to a paradigm-shifting framework: become a detective. When the crying happens, your brain's first reflex is to panic and ask, why are they crying? Instead, I want you to try to calmly reverse engineer it. Just ask yourself, what action actually caused the crying to stop? This simple mental reframing pulls you right out of panic mode and drops you into effective problem solving.
Observing the specific solution is your absolute best clue for revealing the true underlying cause. Just look at the results of your detective work. If being picked up worked instantly, boom, it was instinctual fear. If taking them into a dark, quiet room worked, overstimulation. If burping them did the trick, gas pressure. The exact thing that makes the crying stop is your clearest answer to what caused it in the first place.
Now, paying attention to these patterns is going to dramatically reduce your daily anxiety, for sure. But we also need to be practical. We have to acknowledge that not all crying is just harmless communication. There are specific times when crying isn't simply a request for a diaper change, but an actual, physical alarm bell going off. It is vital to recognize the situations that transcend ordinary daily fussiness. If you're dealing with persistent, inconsolable crying that refuses to stop even after you've tried everything we just talked about, or if that crying is paired with a fever, breathing issues, vomiting, or extreme lethargy, that's a totally different scenario. Sudden, highly unusual behavior paired with distress truly means it's time to get professional medical attention immediately. But once you've safely ruled out those medical red flags, it's super helpful to dispel some persistent fears. A lot of parents hear this old, anxiety-inducing rule to never let a baby cry, terrified that it might cause physical harm. Listen, that is a complete myth. Short periods of normal crying absolutely do not damage a baby's lungs. Biologically speaking, it actually activates tear production and helps clear out their nasal passages naturally.
Ultimately, your real goal as a parent isn't to eliminate every single second of crying. That's a totally impossible standard that will literally only drive you crazy. The real goal is shifting your mindset from panic to patterns. It is all about learning how to listen to and interpret this powerful biological communication. That's what allows you to respond confidently and calmly rather than just reacting out of fear.
And here is the genuinely beautiful reassurance, drawn straight from the data and the experiences of thousands of parents before you. Over time, those endless, terrifying nights, they slowly transform. At first, every single sound creates fear and uncertainty in your own nervous system. But gradually, day by day, you start recognizing the intricate patterns of your child's needs. You stop hearing only blaring noise,
And you actually start hearing meaning. The baby hasn't magically changed. The biological mechanism of crying hasn't changed, but as a parent you evolve. Your brain literally learns the subtle differences between a tired cry, a hungry cry, and a scared cry. You begin to hear a language instead of pure chaos. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you navigate early parenthood. Once understanding replaces panic, how much calmer will your nights become? When you can swap out your own fear for careful observation, the uncertainty fades, your confidence grows, and absolutely everything changes. Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer.